We've got a global team, and one of the things we're trying to do, because we're just investing out of one fund, is identify where the best relative value is, and to the extent we can be agile and move capital to those opportunities, we do. So we have teams that focus on emerging markets, and that perennially is every market is different, so I'm making some generalizations, but emerging markets tend to be quite inefficient. And if you have people on the ground that understand the markets and can identify the partners that you want to work closely with, that understand the partners in those markets, we found opportunities to differentiate between what's actually risky and what is perceived to be risky. Fundamentally, it's hard to see situations where there are a lot of fire sales. So from an opportunity perspective, we're not expecting that. But there's clearly a lot more scrutiny on the banks, both internally and from the regulators, and everybody's sort of waiting to see how that manifests. And I think the banks are going risk off, not just the regional banks, but the larger banks, waiting for all of that to happen. I would also highlight the commercial real estate lending market as being just so impacted by what's happening with the regional banks. And just to put some numbers around it, order of magnitude, 80% of CRE lending is done by banks. About 2/3 of that is done by those banks outside of the top 25. And if you dig a little deeper and look at construction lending, you've got order of magnitude 80% of that done by regional banks. If money supply gets pulled out of that area, that's most definitely going to impact the economy, so we're watching that very closely. Tenants want buildings and to be in buildings where the carbon footprint is low. So we're seeing investments in our portfolio where you'd have one building in the exact same central business district that has a terrible carbon footprint. And as soon as the leases are coming up, the tenants are leaving. And the one right next to it, they're raising rents, and there's a lineup at the door to get in because the carbon footprint is low. We're going to try not to predict what's going to happen with rates. We'd rather not predict, just try to prepare for the different potential outcomes. And you laid out one very plausible. I think what's also plausible is the Fed has too much to lose if they lose this fight on inflation. So I think, even though the market's not predicting it, I could see a situation where rates go up further before they start coming down, or maybe stay flat for a while. So I think over the next couple of years, identifying assets that have some duration may end up paying off very well. So that's another thing we're thinking about. If you're allocating capital to credit, you really want to pick managers that are very good at the fundamental diligence and almost take an equity type underwriting to the task, because most creditors are going to be good at protecting the downside, but for some of the reasons that were mentioned, right, with weaker docs, more ways to strip assets out, your collateral isn't there like it used to be. So you really need companies to grow into the capital structures and ensure that you can actually get refinanced out. I mean, if you went back, I'm not sure what data was, 20, 25 years ago, term loan Bs were being introduced as a way to get institutional investors involved because they were non-amortizing, but most capital structures actually had an amortizing piece to it. Now a lot of LBOs don't have any amortizing paper at all. You go through ebbs and flows where you get a little bit more control and more document protection, but the longer term trend is in the direction of less protection, not more.